Welcome to Heartbrunch. So you are a poet or a playwright and a performer, which is really cool.
Picked all things that begin with P.
Yeah. True. Tell me a bit more about the London scene of performing and writing at the moment, like, and where are you guys? How do you see it?
So I feel like there's like different scenes layered on top of each other in London, which is really interesting. Like they're all very small worlds, but you can go quite a long way within. No, yeah. There's lots of really tiny worlds in London. There isn't really one overall scene, but I feel like where I am is really interesting right now because there's this move of spoken words and performance poets into kind of traditional theatre spaces, and they're kind of shaking up the form there. And that is kind of blowing back into what performance poetry is as well. Like that's getting shaken up by all of these people who have these new theatre tools. So that's really cool at the moment. And I'm really enjoying that. And like there's some amazing spoken word shows out. There are some like poetry publishers who are now publishing scripts of spoken word poet shows. So all of that is really fun, and I'm really enjoying it because it's like my two favourite things that I always struggled with them being quite far apart, and now the scenes are converging. I get to introduce theatre friends to poetry friends.
That's a win-win situation. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when did you actually start writing? Like, what was do you remember your first piece or?
I always think it's a really hard question to answer because like if you go back far enough, we're all just children who played. Do you know what I mean?
Obviously, yeah.
So I think it's more a question of when did everyone else around me stop doing that rather than when did I start? If you see what I mean? Because I just like... I feel like...
Interesting point of view.
Yeah, it's like 12, 13, 14, you start to sort of get serious and all of the creative stuff can start to fall by the wayside. So I think that's when I sort of started going, oh no, I really don't want to lose that stuff. I did the thing of writing like really bad poetry as a teenager, like really bad.
Well, me too. Really like, I think we all did. It's just something that you have to go through to, because you evolve, so you have to start from somewhere.
It has to be bad before you get any better.
Yeah, like really bad. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, so I think maybe 12, 13. Actually, I do remember there was a moment I was in English class. It was Sylvia Plath.
Yeah.
And I had this moment of, I think like a lot of people, I had a bit of a rough time with parents and stuff. So I was reading Daddy. No context whatsoever. Like I was like 14, 15. I had no idea about confessional poetry or feminism or any of these kind of bigger themes. But I was just like, oh, okay. There is this like dead American woman who has put into a poem so much of how I'm feeling, and she's like speaking to me from another era, from a completely different life, and I was like, and she gets me more than the people around me. Like that's kind of magic. Like it's like time travel and magic, and I was like, ooh, this is really cool. Yeah. This is really cool. I could do this as well.
So that inspired you. That was like your first.
Yeah, that was the beginning, I guess. That moment was just like, there's something important here. There's something profound here.
And did you have parents or siblings writing or being creative in any way, or in your family?
Yes and no. Like both of my parents are incredibly talented, creative people. My mother was a visual artist and my father a musician, but they also both very much believe that once you get married and have a child, you settle down and you get a proper
Settle
job.
down.
Yeah, right. So,
Settle down.
so all of this was kind of ancient history by the time I was growing up, and they'd be creative in very quiet ways, and neither of them had ever really viewed it as a viable career. So I think I remember thinking, like, I'm not going out like that. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
no, this is... They sacrificed a lot of their creativity for me, and I kind of went, thank you, I'm definitely not doing that. I want to make this work as hard as I can.
Yeah.
So I started out, and it was the performance poetry, and that kind of led me into theatre, because theatre was more versatile. I could tell more stories and work with character. So where I am now is I do a kids show, which is called Boys Don't.
Boys don't. Yeah.
Which is about kind of masculinities, and it's for ages 8+, and it's kind of teaching boys about a little bit more about emotional intelligence and getting them to think about the way they are taught to interact with the world, the way they're taught to interact with each other and with girls, and that kind of thing. So that's a
really
kids'
good,
poetry
yeah.
show. It's really fun as well.
Yeah.
It's really lovely. And then I also have this other end of my work, which is talking about sexual violence, and in a very adult research context.
Yeah.
And then there's all sorts of stuff in between. So there's a play that I'm doing for grown-ups, which is about survivors of sexual violence. There is, I work with the media every now and again, so people like the BBC and the Observer, and how they, so either in front of or behind the camera, like how they portray sexual violence and trying to get them to do a little bit better. And then I kind of get work talking more generally about masculinities and the way that impacts the world. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, primarily because it's hard to make any one of those things pay enough money to live off of.
Yeah, but also, I guess, if you have something to say, like, if you want to tell your story, no matter through what media or outlets, I totally understand. I mean, you have to use all these stuff. Yeah.
And it's also, it keeps me from getting complacent, because I think that's a real, like, I know for myself, if I just do one thing over and over again, I'll stop pushing, and I'll stop, like you kind of need that, okay, how do I do this better? How do I do this more interestingly, more humanely? That kind of, and learning as well. Like, I love learning, and doing new things is the best way to learn new stuff. So, like, how does TV work? How does theatre work? What are all these things? But I guess it always comes down to language. That's the thread that runs through.
Yeah. What inspires you to write from literature to real life?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I guess it comes from many places for me. So a lot of it is autobiography. Like, I do have that thing where I'm kind of always watching my experience to be like, oh, this is good material.
Yeah.
Which is a weird way to live your life. It's sometimes not the healthiest way to live your life.
It's not the healthiest, I would say that.
So
but
I have to watch it.
It's very inspiring. I mean, it's your own, it's authentic, it's your own experience.
Yeah.
So
and like, everything at some point is autobiography anyway, like, even if it's just, your interior experience, or it's dressed up differently. I think everything is, one way or the other. I write a lot for other people, actually. Really interesting theory in trauma studies about language, and there's one school of thought that claims that the definition of trauma is an event or a series of events that you cannot process through the language centers of your brain.
right,
That what the actual pain is this thing happened and I cannot tell a story about it.
Yeah, you don't have the language. Yeah.
And that's definitely something that feels like it tracks with my life experience. Like, being able to tell a story about something, being able to put it into words, And because words are like just on a very utilitarian level, words are what we use to connect to each other. Like they're our primary tool of connection. So I guess yeah, it's the writing is a tool for me to find people.
Yeah, so
like
it's
you.
like it's more about empathy and about connecting. I see. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I have a very weird relationship with belonging and community and all of those things because I mean, not to go into like all of Tanaka's childhood.
Go.
Well, no, because I'm very different from everyone around me in at least one way. You know, I'm an only child who has my parents were born on separate continents into very different class backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like I always say, my mum was born into a 17-bedroom mansion with 8 servants, and my dad was born into a 2-bedroom shack with 8 siblings.
Yeah.
Which is slight exaggeration, but not much at all.
Yeah.
So we all, like growing up as a family, we had such different experiences of life. And I don't look like really any of my cousins, or I don't think like them, I don't sound like them. I didn't think or sound particularly like the people I went to school with either, or the people I lived around, who were also two very different groups. So I was kind of caught in between this kind of much rougher background where I was growing up, and then I got sent to a very posh school when I was 11. So kind of belonging and community and seeing myself as part of a wider circle has always been a bit of a weird thing. Not necessarily always traumatic. There's a publisher that I worked with a little bit once said, which is, there's no tree that gives fruit all year round. So I definitely have like fallow periods in my writing and my creativity, which is fine because then there's admin to be done. Like,
of course.
Also, I'm in a bit of a weird stage in my career now where I'm doing a little bit less self-motivated writing, and commissions and things like that are starting to come through, but not enough for that to be everything I do. So part of me wants to be going, oh yeah, okay, I've got some time, I'll initiate a project, I'll write something. And another half of me is going, oh, but I need to save that energy in case a commission or something comes through.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird balance.
It's challenging,
that I haven't
isn't
got
it?
yet.
Yeah. Good luck.
I'll figure it out. I mean, I'll figure it out just in time for my life to change again. But it's fine.
Are you waiting for your life to change again?
No, my life is good.
See?
Life is actually really
Life is good.
good at this.
It takes a huge amount of courage to put yourself out there, like write about yourself, actually, and through that accept yourself, accept everything that you feel, and then find yourself even more, understand yourself deeper, and share it with people who will then understand themselves better. And that is, I thought about it like the whole creation process. Like
I had a moment where all of that crystallized for me. When I was 20. When I was 20, actually, 2019 or so, I can't remember. But I had a really good friend at the time who went through a very dark period, and it's fine now, but had at that time attempted suicide. And I sort of wound up doing a lot of the care there, and I was really happy to do it, but of course I wasn't the priority, so all of my feelings and all of the worry of that I kind of ended up putting into poetry. And because it wasn't, there wasn't really another place to put it at that time. And I performed one of those poems at an event, and afterwards this woman came up to me who was I was at university, so she was in the year above me, and she was one of those people who I was completely intimidated by. Like, she was articulate and impressive and was doing a 100,000 things, and you know,
Wow.
like just one of those people you're just like, I would love to grow up to be you.
Yeah.
But she came up to me and she said, I'm really glad that you did that poem because I went through almost exactly the same thing as you.
Wow.
And hearing that was just so, I can't remember the exact phrase she used, but she said essentially, I'm really glad that you did that and that I got to hear it. And I kind of went, oh. And that hadn't really, I was just kind of doing it, you know, I was just kind of, oh, this is a thing that's happened, I need to put it somewhere, so I'm going to do it like that. But I kind of had this moment where I stopped and went, oh, I'm really glad it helped you. And she said, yeah, it really did help. And I went home, and I remember lying in bed and thinking, that helped someone. That was worthwhile. I could do that for the next 60 years of my life, and that would be fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
Which is such a blessing of a moment to have, because I know lots of people don't have that, and especially so young. But yeah, so that was kind of like, this is not just about me, this is about connecting with other people and kind of that validation thing of, you know.
I think that was it. I had another, like the last question was, if you could have written any poem of any time in history, what would that be?
Wild Geese by Mary Oliver.
Okay, cool. I don't know it. I'm gonna read it.
You don't know? Oh,
No.
It's beautiful.
Before we, do you want me to listen to it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, before that, can we just say, and before the camera dies, I want to say thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you for doing it. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun, and it's our first interview for the blog for Heartbrunch. And I forgot to mention that you have, like, Tanaka has a podcast which is really cool, a literary podcast called Icepick, and you should check it out.
If you go, can I do a plug? It's just my website is tanakamishi.co.uk. That's where everything is.
Yes.
All of the things I'm doing.
Yeah, and yeah, that was fun.
It was fun. Thank you. Let's do a hug.
Thank you.
Okay, now
Okay.
poetry.
Now
poetry.
Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things.